Well, he was taking a nap. Put the camera turned on. I perked right up. And then said, nope, screw it. Go back to sleep. Ah, classic Puck. Such an awesome little dog. Good morning, Magic players and card collectors of all kinds. Welcome back to the channel. It is time for Super Deck Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. We are here for our new hit show on the channel. Let's call it a show. I don't know what we're supposed to call these things, to be honest. Playlists is what they have them labeled, so our hit new playlist, let's call it that. Where we go through decks on a regular basis, bringing back that, Lord of the Forbidden Decks quality. I've been doing Magic decks for the last few of these, and today is no exception, but give me a shout out in the comments if you'd like to see a different Forbidden deck. I do have all my Yu-Gi-Oh decks still in my room here now. Actually, I got all the Yu-Gi-Oh cards out of storage over the last little while. Mostly just because I don't trust storage. I've never really liked the idea of putting things in storage that are valuable to me. But anyways, so I have all of them here, and so we can do a profile of a Yu-Gi-Oh deck if you'd like to see something a little different for a change. I would love to show you my Pokemon card collection again, but unfortunately I had to sell a whole bunch of those, which I've already talked about before with you guys. It is what it is. You gotta do what you gotta do to survive. I'm happy to at least still have all my Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I'm happy to have all these wonderful Magic cards that I can play with now. But, speaking of Magic cards, bringing it back to more positive and upbeat feeling, we have a really fun deck for you guys today. I've talked about this one on my channel for at least 3 or 4 months. I built this deck back in the fall, I think, and it's slowly just kind of improved more and more over time, with the purchasing of a few really expensive cards, unfortunately. For me, expensive, not like actual expensive. For me, a card is expensive if it hits $25 or higher. And I won't buy anything that's worth, like, I think the most I've ever spent on a card is to get back a card that I traded in. I paid for it, and I paid like $120 because I wanted that specific card because it was my card originally, and I had to sell it, and I felt really bad about selling it, and it was still in the shop, so I wanted it back. But other than that, all of the cards that I've bought typically are like under $50. I don't usually spend more than that. Recently, I bought an Ocelot Pride for 56, and that was probably a personal high for me in the top, like, say, 10 cards that I've ever spent crazy amounts of money on. But anyways, today we are doing the blue deck, hence the sleeves, and hence the Jace. It is what I affectionately call my solitaire deck. I was originally just going to show you guys the commander from the get-go, but I decided, you know what? It's going to be fun. We do enjoy doing Mystery Commander every now and again, so I'm going to throw out Mystery Commander today. See if you guys can guess who is the most awesome commander for this particular deck by the time we get through the end of it. Alright, we're going to do the lands first. You'll note that I have a weird card up here. That's because I actually have something special for this deck that I'll show you guys in a bit. And these two up here are Planeswalker cards. The commander is underneath the tokens, and we're going to just go across like we usually do. So, starting with the lands. I have a Phyrexian Island. That is actually a hint for you guys. I have a really cool full art island that I love from, what was that set? Midnight Hunt. Midnight Hunt had some really cool lands. I really liked all these artworks, actually. I tried to pick out some of my favorite island artworks, so I'm going to definitely take some time to go through these. Reliquary Tower is huge in this deck. This deck wants to have a lot of cards in your hand. Or at the very least, it wants you to draw a lot of cards. That is the goal of this deck, is to draw the shit out of your deck. Pardon my swearing. I like that one. That one's really pretty. Oh, and Kaiba heard the neighbor dog. So after this video, I definitely will have to take him out. Urza's Power Plant. I do have all three of the Trons in this deck. It is a very artifact-focused deck, so I thought, it seemed on flavor. I do actually also have an Urza in this deck, as a bit of a spoiler. It is not the commander, though. So don't guess Urza. You will fail if you guess Urza. That's me helping you out a little more. And that's the last time I'm going to help you out. This island's pretty cool because of the dark artwork on it. I like that one. Some of these have nice little flavor text on them, too. They're like really cool lands for that reason. Alarmed by the news you brought, the storm giant king of the Maelstrom has called his kin to council. Pretty cool. Archway of Innovation is really solid in this deck because, again, I'm doing artifact stuff, so giving things improvise is a great idea. I think that's the last of the Trons. Is it? Did we go through all the Trons? I thought we did, but maybe we didn't. Power Plant, mine. Oh, it was the Reliquary Tower I was thinking of. Okay, continuing on. That one's pretty. Hollowland. That one I think is from Ixalan, isn't it? Let me know if I'm wrong, but I think that's Ixalan. There's the last of the Trons. Another Phyrexian land, beautiful full art one. After careful study, you've determined that the giant ruins serve to track the movement of the planets, and they will soon align once more. Again, beautiful, beautiful works of art. It really saddens me how much more effort I feel people put into the islands than they do the rest of the artworks, but at the same time, it gives you something really special to look at when you're doing a blue deck. As your ship clears the edge of Waterdeep Harbor, you notice pirate sails on the horizon. What has made them so bold? And the last one. Pretty. Alright. So, all in total, I think there's 34 lands, maybe 33. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Oh, 32, pardon me. I did actually go a little light on the lands because I wanted to go a little heavier on the artifacts and stuff in this deck. And there's a lot of instants in here too. So, artifacts-wise, we have Marina Vendrell's Grimoire. This thing's insane. When it enters, if you cast it, you get to draw 5 cards, then you have no maximum hand size, and you don't lose the game for having 0 or less life. So your life total doesn't matter anymore as long as this thing stays out. Whenever you gain life, you draw that many cards. So your life total goes up, but you also you get to draw that many cards. Whenever you lose life, you discard that many cards. So if you get down to like 0 life, I don't know whether you can actually go negative life or not in the game. That's something that I will have to ask when it eventually comes up, but I've never actually gotten this card to go in yet. This is one of the new ones that I've recently gotten to add to the deck. So I haven't actually had it come up in a gameplay situation yet. But the cool thing is as long as you have cards in your hand, you can't lose the game. As soon as you have no cards in your hand, though, you do. So it's really make sure that you don't completely discard yourself out. Spellbook is an old card, but it's a beautiful one. For 0, you have no maximum hand size. And I actually have a Thought Vessel in here too for the same thing, but it actually lets you add mana, so bonus. But that one costs 2. So it's nice to have an extra artifact in there that gives you no maximum hand size. Trading Post is really cool. And I like the... I pulled this one from the energy deck that I actually built, which you guys seen a couple weeks ago. I found that Thought Vessel wasn't necessary in that deck, but it's super important in this one. Trading Post. Discard a card, gain 4 life, or you can pay a life and create a white goat, or you can sacrifice a creature to return an artifact to your hand, or you can sacrifice an artifact to draw a card. I love how versatile this thing is. This thing is insanely useful. Thundersteel Colossus is awesome. Just a big beefy boy to have on the field. Inspiring Statutory, your non-artifact spells have improvised, so anything like an instant or a sorcery or an enchantment, you can tap your artifacts to pay down the cost, which is pretty important in this deck. We want to be tapping our stuff as much as we possibly can. Ivory Tower is great because if we have no maximum hand size, we can gain a bunch of life each turn as long as our hand is pretty full. Tempered Anchor, which, again, if you combine that with this, you're going to be drawing more cards every time you gain life, which means that you'll have more cards the next turn in theory. So, great way to get yourself decked out. Temporal Anchor, at the beginning of your upkeep, you scry 2, and whenever you choose to put one or more cards on the bottom of your library while scrying, you instead exile that many cards from the bottom of your library. Or you do that, I guess, before the scry occurs. I'm not really 100% sure. And then during your turn, you can play the cards that are exiled with this thing. This is another one of those ones that I've recently put into this deck that I haven't had a chance to actually check out how it works completely in a gameplay situation. But I'm pretty keen to see if it works the way I think it does. What I think happens, and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, I think when you put the cards to the bottom, before they go to the bottom, you exile that many cards from the bottom, and then you would put the cards that you're scrying to the bottom. So in theory, whatever you scryed the previous turn, you could actually get into exile on your next turn. I think that's how that works, but I could be wrong. I have a Hull Drifter, which is from the new set. That was actually pulled from my Zombie Precon deck. And it actually ended up being a really useful card in this deck. The fact that I get to draw cards when it comes in is really great, and the fact that I can crew it for 3 is awesome because I can tap a whole bunch of stuff to crew it if I want to. And finally, a Futurist Sentinel, just another vehicle. I have 3 vehicles in here total. A big 6/6 beefy boy for 4. Again, just the biggest thing is I want to be crewing stuff because, again, we want to be tapping. Tapping is very important in this deck. Dictate Crewfix. It's, of course, an insanely awesome card for this deck because at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player gets to draw an extra card. I want to be drawing cards. Gives me more life, etc., etc. All good stuff. Curiosity, if I decide I want to be attacking with a creature, I have a bunch of things in here that fly, so this is great to attach to those. I get to draw a card. I put Amphibian Downpour in here just to mess with my opponents, essentially. This thing, I basically get to turn as many creatures as I want based on the storm count into frogs. And they lose all their abilities, which is pretty important. Curse of Verbosity is a great way to distract the other players at the table by having them focus on attacking one person that isn't me so that I can get to draw cards. That said, it is also kind of fun as just a jest. You could curse yourself in theory, and then whenever you get attacked, you get to draw a card, and whoever attacks you also draws a card. Which, again, I want to be drawing cards. My opponents don't want me to be drawing cards in theory in this deck if they understand how this deck works, so that could be a fun way to play this card too. And then, of course, Compulsion, which is a fun way to also get some more cards. This is one card that I'm considering pulling out if I get something else that would be more useful in this deck, just because of the cost. But I do like the fact that I can keep playing that cost multiple times in a turn to draw and discard multiple cards if need be. This special card up here is something that I've only ever seen once, and it's on this card, and it is an enchantment artifact. There are probably more of these in the game, I'm sure there must be, but I've never seen anything like this before. And it is actually really cool in this deck. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. Very good. And I can also pay 1 and a blue to tap creatures my opponent to tap this, and then creatures my opponents control attack this turn if able. So essentially, if I want my opponent to be using their creatures, I can tap it. But the main goal is just the first part of this. Whenever a creature I control deals combat damage, I get to draw another card, if I want to. I do like the fact that it's a May ability, so if it's not in my benefit to draw, I don't have to. I have had one game that was really horrible with this deck, where I played against a person who was actually running a Shieldred as their commander, and I basically killed myself on turn 5 or 6, I think, because of how much card draw I was doing. But other than that, this deck is actually a lot of fun to play. Alright, next, sorceries. I have a reverse engineer for some draw. I have one with a machine for some draw. I have a serum visions for some draw. And I have a 4C for some draw. Hence the theme. Alright, we've got instance, some more draw. And we're going to have a bunch of counters in here too. So we got draw from Deliberate, from Opt. Ice Out is a solid counter in this deck. Because I can sacrifice the artifact. Lose Focus is another counter spell that I love because you can replicate it a bunch of times. As far as I know, you can pay the replicate cost more than one time. Refute is a new one I recently pulled. I do love the full art on it. And the fact that I get to draw and discard a card when I play it is a very key reason why I put it in here. Thassa's Rebuke is just very on flavor for this deck. Flow of Knowledge is insane for the card draw that I get out of that. Negate. Spellgeyer, I get either or, card draw or counter spell on this, which is fun. So, best of both worlds. And finally, lose Long River's Pull, which is probably one of my favorite counter spells in the game. Definitely one of my favorite spells from Bloomburrow. I do love the idea that you can gift a card to somebody and then counter whatever kind of spell you need to, but if it's just a creature, then you're set already. I'm going to do the Planeswalkers before I do the creatures. So we have 2 Planeswalkers in this deck. I'm just going to show him to you first, and I'm going to kind of stick my head over here because I have a hard time seeing his name. Mordenkainen, I think is his name. I apologize if I got that wrong. 2+ loyalty, draw 2 cards, and then put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library, which is great with the artifact that lets me exile stuff. I can -2 to create a blue dog illusion creature token, and that creature's power and toughness are equal to twice the number of cards in my hand. I think I have 1 copy of that token somewhere in my tokens box, maybe? But that is like an insane token. I need to add it to this deck. It's the only deck that is going to have it in, probably. And then finally, for -10, I can exchange my hand and my library, then shuffle, and I get an emblem where I have no maximum hand size. Just another way to get no maximum hand size. But most of the time I'm not going to be playing that. The illusion creature is a really good thing to get out, though. And I also have a Jace Memory Adept, which lets me draw and make people mill. I can make myself mill, which gets me through my deck even faster if I want to. I can also make a person mill 10 cards, whether that be me or somebody else again. And I can have any number of people draw 20 cards for -7, which is, again, just a fabulous way to get through this deck as quickly as possible. I'm actually really curious if I have one now, so I'm going to just take a quick peek. I think I pulled one the other day. I could have swore I pulled an illusion token that had a puppy on it. Oh, my dad's back. Alright, let's close this out as quick as we can then. We have a Cogwork Archivist, which is great for getting stuff back into my library if I need to. Reduces the cost of my artifact spells. He lets me sacrifice an artifact to draw cards, which is great because I actually have another guy in here, a few down, who, whenever I cast an artifact, I get to create a Thopter. And Thopters are great for sacrificing. You can also sacrifice 2 to draw a card off of him, so another great sacrifice. Shimmer Dragon's awesome. Riddlesmith. Lots of card draw, lots of putting stuff back into my deck. I like this one because it lets me surveil instead of drawing, so I can put it into the graveyard if I don't want to pick it, or I just leave it on top and draw it whenever I get to draw again. Laboratory Maniac is insane in this deck, just because it's an alternate win con for this deck. There's actually two alternate win cons. The other one is, of course, Athasa's Oracle, which you are all, I'm sure, guessing was in this deck. And basically, those are the point of the deck, is to try and deck myself out and then win with one of those two. Gamoza is an older card, but it's an insanely fun one. Whenever it gets attacked, essentially I can tap it, and then I can put it and the creature it's blocking on top of their libraries, and then we each have to shuffle. So essentially, it just gives me one free block, and because it has flying and defender, it's really hard to get around. Moonfolk Puzzle Maker, another flyer. A lot of the cards in here that do have flying, essentially the reason for it is, again, I want to be tapping, and tapping to attack is one way to do it. Foundry Inspector to reduce cost again. We have a couple, 2 or 3 cards in here that reduce cost of artifacts. A lot of my creatures are artifacts, as you'll notice. The Silver Raven, for example, is an artifact. Bird. Diamond Mare is awesome. It's a recent addition to the deck. Whenever I cast a spell of the chosen color, which will be obviously blue since I'm on a blue deck, I get to gain 1 life. This is another great card. Whenever a player casts their first multicolored spell each turn, everybody else gets to draw a card. I obviously am playing monocolored, so therefore I will never have that ability trigger for my opponents on my turn. It'll only trigger on each of their turns for me. And most people play multicolored commander, so chances are I'm going to be drawing a bunch of cards off this thing. This guy's pretty cool. I can tap him to draw 3 cards. Again, tapping things is where I'm at right now. He would have made an excellent commander, possibly, except for the amount of cost it is to put him into play. But I do like the fact that you can return him to your hand. So, I mean, if I put him into play once from the command zone, in theory, as long as I have enough mana up, I can always return it to my hand and I won't have to play the commander tax. Captain of Umber. Draw a card, discard a card. Merfolk Looter. Draw a card, then discard a card. Another great way to make Thopters. Whenever I cast something with mana value 4 or greater, there's a bunch of stuff in here with mana value 4 or greater, so that triggers a bunch of times off of him. There is the Urza I mentioned earlier that is not the commander, but is definitely a game changer. There's at least 2, if not 3 game changers in this deck. It's definitely a class 3. I'm trying to be very careful not to let it get into bracket 4, because I do not want to play bracket 4. It's supposed to be more of a fun deck, not necessarily a deck that I expect to win outright in turn 4 with or some crap. But I do love the Urza for sure. I get to create colorless construct whenever he enters, and I also can shuffle my library and exile the top card and play that card without paying its mana cost. And whenever I tap an untapped artifact, I get to add blue, so just another way to generate mana. He would definitely be probably everybody's choice for commander, and if he was my commander, it would definitely be a bracket 4, which is why I'm avoiding putting him there. But the guy I have in commander is actually even better for this deck anyways. Have you guessed who it is yet? It's a Phyrexian. It's not Urza. Nadir Kraken is insane for this deck. Whenever I draw a card, I can pay 1, and if I do, I get to put +1/+1 counter on this thing, and then I get to create a token. So just more things that I can sacrifice. Reckless Scholar, another great way to draw a card and discard a card. Traxos is insane because it's such a big beefy boy in the first place for 4, and it's going to be untapping constantly because of how many artifacts and artifact creatures there are in this deck. Elrond is great because he triggers off with the 1 artifact that lets me scry and exile things. The Ring Tempting Me is just kind of like an extra bonus in this deck, but I don't really intend to use that as much of an effect to my benefit necessarily, other than the draw that you get out of that if you get to the ring to the right step, you get to draw and discard, which is great. Dagur Island Dragon, recent pull from the Tarkir set. I love this guy. You can play him constantly and keep doing the whole tapping a creature, draw a card ability. But if you need something on board, you also get a Flying Ward 2 for 4/4 for 6, which is pretty damn solid. Another card from the energy deck that I actually ended up pulling and putting into this one because I felt there were more artifacts that would be worth exiling with this guy. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, I draw cards equal to his base power, and I can exile a non-token artifact creature I control, and he becomes a copy of it, except he still has the ability that when he deals combat damage, he draws cards. So I believe that he can do this, and it will be a permanent thing unless you pay to redo it or it leaves the battlefield. If I'm correct about that, this is an insanely fun card to combine with all the different cards in this deck, and my commander actually allows me to basically trigger off of almost any card in my deck, any creature in my deck with this, which is pretty cool. Silver Mirror lets me add blue. Again, another great way to tap. Tap for scrying. Mage Hand is awesome, and I actually have a Feto Alchemist in here too for the same reason, which is basically just to untap some of my stuff and get multiple triggers off of my commander. Lumergrid Sentinel is a recent addition to the deck. Basically, whenever a artifact enters the battlefield, I can tap something, which is great. Curator of Mysteries, another great flyer, and where I discard a card, I get to scry. There's not really any cycling in this deck. He's the only one I think that has a cycling cost, and I don't intend to use cycling very much. But cycling would be a great addition to this deck. It's just not going to fit with all the other stuff I already have in here. Ornithophagus, one Oneirophage. I think I got it. This thing's insane because whenever I draw a card, it's just going to get bigger and bigger, and it's a flyer. This one I plan to use more as a blocker, just to... It's going to get so big that I can easily absorb like whatever is coming at me. And finally, a Scrap Trawler, which is an insanely fun card for this deck because whenever it or another artifact I control gets put into a graveyard from the battlefield, I get to take an artifact from the graveyard with lesser mana value and put it back into my hand. So just a great way to recycle things in my graveyard. And that brings us to the end. We got our few tokens here. I definitely need to go grab a construct token, and I need to grab an illusion token for this deck. But otherwise, we just have the commander to reveal. And did you guess it? It is... Who's that? Commander! It's Unctus! Sorry to rip off Pokemon a little bit, but that's funny. Unctus Grand Meditect is the commander in this deck. He is definitely like the pilot that just makes this entire engine run beautifully, because all my blue creatures, except for him, get the ability that when they're tapped, I get to draw and discard, so it's just another way to filter through my deck really fast. And all my artifact creatures get +1/+1. But the best part is, I can pay Phyrexian Blue, which is either 2 of my life, which doesn't matter if the one artifact's out, or I can pay an actual blue mana, and I can turn any of my artifact creatures into a blue artifact creature. So essentially, any of the creatures in here that are just plain regular artifacts, and any of the creatures in here that are not artifacts, all become able to tap and draw a card and discard a card, and all get +1/+1 just by paying 1 blue. So it's an insane way to just make all this function and just run really smoothly. And yeah, that's why I call it the solitaire deck, because essentially my goal is to just keep drawing cards and discarding cards and get through the deck as quickly as possible like you do in solitaire, and eventually pull either the Thassa's or the other guy and win off of them. I'm open to suggestions if anybody has any to improve the deck without putting it over the edge of that bracket 4. As of right now, it is still a bracket 3 as far as I know, and I want to leave it that way. Um, I don't expect to win a lot of games with this deck. It's more just a fun deck to play whenever I want to just do some shenanigans and stuff like that. But yeah, that's all I got for you today on Super Deck Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Go to the pug. Much love to you all from me. You take care, and bye.